Hey, Matt.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Good. I have your bio here. Can I read it off to you real quick? Because it's
Yeah.
All right. For the past decade, he has woken up at 4 a.m. to read research to find ways to solve the issues people have that nobody wants to fix. Within that research, he has found many different ways to fix things. That's literally all I have.
All right. Yes.
I mean, besides author, right, and practicing doctor and speaker, I mean, there's the bullet points, but that's it. That's the bio. 2 sentences.
Yeah. So I'm a classically trained DC.
You are? Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. But I spend lots of time doing research, and so I have found lots of ways of fixing different things. So
cool. Okay. I mean, I'm sure that's accurate. I'm sure it's very accurate. Straightforward.
I'll have to make sure that these get written a little better from that out.
I'm looking at my team pulls questions, so I'm trying to, which is great because I've got a team that researches and everything, and so the questions are like, what's so interesting about women's health that caught you? So I'm assuming you really kind of specialize in female health. And
I actually don't. I just do a lot of things for women. And what happens if you do anything for women, because some people do nothing, they're just like, oh, you're a women's specialist. I'm like, I do 4 things. You guys just do none.
Yeah. Are we recording, guys? Okay, did we get that from the very beginning with the bio? Because that's kind of funny. Okay, we got it. This is going to be like Joe Rogan experience. We're just going to go with this because it's hilarious, man.
I like it.
Dr. Matt Chalmers, what's shaking? Welcome, dude. But
it's fun. It's fantastic. I love it. No, it's great. How are you guys doing up there?
We're good. You said something interesting though, which was really curious to me because it's like, as I said, my team pulls questions, right? And I'm glad because this is all going to make it into the show, which is pretty hilarious. We're just going to leave it as I love it. I'm glad my team is recording because I like to catch these things. But what's so interesting, about women's health? You said you just somehow treat a lot of women disproportionately to men.
Well, not really, but what ends up happening is that there's things that women have to deal with that I can fix that nobody else seems to care about. So orgasm function in women is really easy to increase. Endometriosis, PCOS is not super difficult to make substantially better. Women blow their knees out 10 times more often than men because of their pelvis. And so if you learn to put the pelvis back together and teach the women how to do it, then they're good. Lots of women end up peeing on themselves when they laugh after they have babies because no one teaches them pelvic floor strengthening and Kegel function. And when you teach them that, they're like, oh, look, now everything's fixed. And you do, 10 or 12 of those things. And now all of a sudden it's, we do lots of women's health. Women don't get a lot of testosterone help and it's wildly critical. So a lot of women come in here and they're all just destroyed and you give them the testosterone, they feel lots better.
I was reading about that, which is kind of counterintuitive, right? Because everybody feels that, at least it knows in old school practices, that testosterone is male and estrogen is female. But there's a requirement for both in opposite ways for each gender as well, correct?
Not really. There isn't so men have the trough levels we try to get for men is about 1,000. The trough levels we try to get for women is about somewhere between 80 and 150. So men have a lot more. But the idea that it's just a male hormone is really, really bad from a health standpoint, because what you have to understand is that orgasm function, bone density, mental clarity, energy, the tissue that's built around the heart, so all the muscle tissue, all the ATP that's created in the body all healing is directly related to testosterone. So the idea that only men should heal is ridiculous.
That's insane. So you're talking connective tissue, anything in the body comes from the function of testosterone, the healing of that.
Yeah, there's no way I could fix ulcerative colitis or MS without it.
Interesting. That's so crazy. I can see why you go to, or at least it just ends up happening, that you understand a lot more about women and things that you can fix, because this is not well-known information, dude. This is just something that I study up and I haven't heard a lot of this stuff.
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of information that's out that is really easy to put together. The problem that a lot of people don't get is because you have to look at who's paying for what. So for instance, you can fix diabetes in about 2 or 3 weeks, but it's worth millions of dollars if you treat it over the course of the patient's life.
Yeah.
So no one fixes it, so they can charge for the treatment. So, it's little things like that change the way that we get information. So testosterone is probably the most important natural hormone to put back in your body. next to D3, which, by the way, D3 is not a vitamin, it's a hormone.
It's a hormone, yeah.
So it's super critical for both men and women for all healing and all functionality. Which the funniest thing to me is when I get men and women who come in and they're both low, they're married, we bring their testosterone back up. Every single time I've done that, they've come back in and been like, you saved my marriage. And it's like, why? It's like, I can sleep better. I'm not as much of a jerk. The sex drive goes through the roof, orgasm function comes back, and all of a sudden they like each other again.
Wow.
So it is super critical that we get those levels back up. You cannot heal at all without it. So that's the big piece is we got to get that in.
Yeah. I already know somebody I need to connect you with too, who runs a mastermind for DCs. And he does a whole bunch of stuff, but I mean, you should speak there. I'm seeing him in a couple weeks here because I mean, even within that, within the chiropractic community, because there's a lot of chiropractors that I've seen that just kind of sit in that zone. They don't traverse into where you've gone into, which really is holistic medicine and just real world shit. And that's what I love. I knew one DC who was very similar to you, and I appreciate him too.
Yeah. So, and that's, it's one of those things people go, well, how come everybody else hasn't done that? They're probably happy doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like chiropractic is by far the most fun and awesome job you can have because first of all, to get in this, you have to kind of like the popping sound. So you get the popping thing, which popping actually doesn't do very much. It's a neurologic function, but you get to watch people get better every single day. You might have someone who just started who's in a lot of pain, but then 5 minutes later, you have somebody who comes in and goes, man, I was a level 8. Now I'm a 2. Thanks so much. Yeah. So every single day you get to see benefit. And so that's why a lot of people are like, why they do this till they were 90? Because they could, because it's not a job anymore. It's fun to go to work. So that's why a lot of chiros don't go and do the stuff I've done. They're like, hey man, I'm fully fulfilled. And so that's why it's even rare in our profession.
Yeah. I love the way you talk about this as well, because you're putting it towards things that really are emotionally driven. It's like, hey, you can have better sex, you can save your marriage, you can sleep better. All of these things. If I started talking about my back, it's not as sexy. You know what I mean? it's these others are like, oh my God, But it's also really cool to me because I got to throw this out. I had a disc that was bulged, right, and it was almost like segmented at one point. This was just maybe 6 months ago. And I had an orthopedic surgeon that was very kind, somebody that I knew that is a family of somebody that works for me, and did an MRI, and he saw, and it was compressing my sciatic nerve to the point, dude, this was probably like one of the worst things I've ever felt in my life, to the point when it happened, my calf muscle completely seized in a permanent tense state. And I actually had to get that rubbed out, massages and acupuncture and everything after that, and then build the strength back up over the course of several months. But I mean, after that, because immediately it was like, surgeons want to cut, right? It's just kind of what they do. He's like, you got to go under. This is bad. This is it. I'm like, I'm gonna just see what happens. So there's 2 chiropractors that I see, and it's cool because they both like to specialize, like you're saying, in different areas. And they enjoy the different types of manipulations that they do. And it's like, I learned them both well enough to be like, this is what's going on. I took them the MRI image. It's like, here's your roadmap. You can actually see inside my body right here. And dude, within 4 months, no joke, completely healed. Like no other issues. Yeah. I got full strength back in my leg, everything. I don't have back pain, nothing.
Yeah, I do a lot of decompression. So I have a neuro cert as well, which is where a lot of the nerd stuff comes from. But decompression is fantastic. It's super fun. So what's the funnest thing that goes into that whole play, because it's a neuro thing as well. So plantar fasciitis, carpal tunnel, frozen shoulder, and scoliosis are all brain issues. And they're super easy to fix. So what ends up happening is you have something in the brain called neurologic tone, right? So your muscles have 2 things. They have strength and they have tone. Strength is how hard they can pull at any one given time. Tone is how hard they're pulling all the time. We call it posture. Well, it's controlled differently in the brain. So your flexors, which curl you into a ball, are controlled by all your hindbrain, and your extensors, which bring you out, are controlled by your frontal lobe. Well, at night when you fall asleep, your frontal lobe shuts down, and so the hindbrain stays active. So you shut the one down, and one stays up. So it controls and contracts all those flexors. Same thing happens with the joints. So as you start typing and grabbing and turning and twisting, this muscle gets activated way too much. This one doesn't get activated at all. So if you've got it, it'll start tightening up and pulling down the carpal tunnel, giving you carpal tunnel. So if you'll go to Amazon and get finger rubber bands, that's what they're called, stick your fingers in and just open up a lot, exhaust this muscle a couple times a day for a week or two, it'll radically decrease your your carpal tunnel. So same thing, scoliosis, the whole deal. One side of the spine the tone gets too high, curls it over. So if you'll activate the other side, it'll straighten it back out. Same thing.
That's freaking brilliant.
So,
that's what I had to do with my calf to get it to release, is just exhaust it. I was on like 2 books and I just had to go up and down and do these. They hurt like hell, man, when I did it when this was happening. But that's what made it release. I mean, I had acupuncture, but just exhausting it is what released it.
So on the other side of that, if you'll, so the way like you do plantar fasciitis is you point the toe as far as you can and pull it back as far as you can. While you're doing that, if you'll compress the Achilles tendon, because in the Achilles tendon is all these little mechanoreceptors, Golgi tendon organs, muscle spindle fibers. If you compress the tendon, it sends this barrage of information to the brain. It's like, dude, we are super screwed up. And so what happens, the brain immediately turns back down to the calf and goes, you need to relax your tone right now. You're going to tear. And then as you're activating the anterior tibialis by pulling the toes up, it activates that. And the anterior tibialis sends a message to the brain, goes, dude, I don't know what's going on, but it's super tight down here. And so the brain just recycles it. And like I have people who come in on crutches, and I'll do that, and they'll stand up and start walking around with plantar fasciitis, and they're just like, "Oh my god, it's amazing!" I'm like, it's going to tighten back up tonight, but a couple times a week for about 2-3 weeks, and you fix it.
That's amazing, man. I love it. I can see why this is fun for you.
Yeah.
Originally, when I started seeing a chiropractor like 2 decades ago, I understood the benefits, but I mean, even down to the nerve side of it, but I can see it. It lit me up when I started getting into the mind of chiropractors and understanding. It's the same as a dentist. I used to think, why would anybody ever want to be a dentist? Until I saw the dentist that I see right now, became friends with him, and I'm like, you're literally like building shit all day long.
Oh yeah.
He's like, I know, I love it. I love shaping stuff and the aesthetics of things. I'm like, all right then. Well, then now I understand it.
Yeah, they're like sculptors. Like the guys, especially the guys who do the really good veneers, like those guys that's a cool thing.
Yeah, man, I went in because on this tooth over here, right, I had it was like slightly set back. I'm talking like a 1/2 millimeter. But because I'm on camera so often, it's like when I would turn, I would see a slight shadow, and it just annoyed the crap out of me. So I went into it, but I'm like, because I whiten, just like a lot of people do. I've got A1. That's my tone or whatever it is, my whatever they call it, which is like one of the brightest. It just happens to be. It's like Ross from Friends, So it looks good though. I'm like, dude, I got this shadow. I'm seeing it show up in photos, and it makes me look a little bit like a hillbilly. Can you please fix this for me? He's like, oh yeah, no problem. Coming in, we'll set the appointment. 30 minutes. That's all it was. And he looked at him like, oh my God, this looks so natural and perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. They're like, what's really cool is they have like these little CEREC machines. And if you like to have a tooth pulled, they can literally like create one right there in the office and like put the crown back on and that type of thing. So it's, dentistry's pretty cool. We work with a lot of those guys because we'll have zirconium implants put in.
Oh yeah.
Because a lot of times what we end up seeing is that if you do a root canal, you don't really want to leave dead tissue in the body. And so it just works out better if you'll pull those teeth and just do an implant. The problem is that not everybody can afford that, but that's usually the best route.
Yeah.
So we work with these dentist guys all the time, especially when we got to pull the mercury out of people's mouths. All these silver, nickel, mercury fillings are wildly toxic, and they actually gas the mercury as they're in your head. So we send people out to get those pulled out so they can put composite back in so it's safer.
That's so cool. Because, I mean, we're talking here. I think we both have a bit of a bromance on dentists now. But at the same time, dude, you clearly are not just manipulating joints or being a typical chiropractor. This is your breadth of what you're interested in and what you do is so expansive. How did you get from going to I don't know if you went to Palmer or wherever you went to school to be a DC, but how did you get from that into doing what you're doing now?
So I went to Parker, and I've always kind of been a why. So my whole family's engineers. And so I'm kind of an engineer. And when you look at the body from an engineering standpoint, it makes a heck of a lot more sense. Because then you're like, every time you talk about the body, and then people are like, well, it's just hard to understand. It's not hard to understand. Like, it's just a machine. And once you figure out how to work it, you understand how everything works. The problem is that a lot of the medical stuff, they're like, well, you just have to trust me on it because it doesn't make sense because it's not how it really works. Like cholesterol, for example. Like they tell you, well, if your cholesterol is too high, it's going to plaque. Why doesn't it plaque at 150? The answer is it does. Like the last UCLA study that came out said 75% of people who had plaquing had good or normal cholesterol levels. And so I'm like, well, why is that?
Yeah.
And you start looking at reactive oxidative stress. Well, what causes that? And so like, it's just one of those things. And then I got to the point where I started being able to fix things. And then people started getting sent here. So I started getting everybody who nobody else could fix. And I started getting scared. I was like, well, if I'm the last guy they can see, that means I got to be able to fix these things. Because if that's what I got to do, that's what I got to do. And so I woke up at 4 every morning for a long time now, about a decade. And I've read medical research for a couple hours. And it's been really, really fun and really beneficial. So that's just kind of where it all came from, is just that, I'm getting these people nobody else can fix. If nobody else can fix them, that means I'm apparently the last stop. So that would freak me out and maybe read.
So you had this natural thirst for knowledge, really is what it came down to.
As you start to figure it out, see, this is the other thing though. Like, people ask me, like, you work so much. I'm like, I don't work at all. Like, when I go on vacation, like the reading thing isn't a work thing. Like, when we go on vacation and nobody else wants to go do anything till 8 or 9 in the morning, I read from 4 until 9.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I do for my hobby. So it just happens to be what people pay me for. So that's the biggest piece, is that I really, like you said, I love this stuff.
I've seen this as a trait. And I mean, of course you see articles and studies about this too, is that the wildly successful people are those who are constantly in search for knowledge. And I've always seen this because I used to feel like I never wanted to read anything, but I was naturally curious. So I think that everybody, I mean, I hope so anyways, that most of the people on this earth, dude, are actually naturally curious. It's just the knowledge and the consumption part, to me, is almost like a muscle that you build. Once you get into it, it becomes insatiable.
I think the other problem is that we're told a lot not to walk down those roads. And we're told you have to know things about everything. And I'm just like, why? Like, my big thing about, like, I argue about this with schooling, is why do we teach people the way we do nowadays? Like, why do we make people memorize anything? Like, you can look it up, use the technology. We should be using the last 2 years of school for personal development, EQ. How do you cook? How do you sew a button? Like, how do you live a life?
Yeah.
Like, we don't need geometry or trig. We don't need that. If you want to be an engineer, great. Go to college and become an engineer. We don't need that in high school. We need to teach people how to communicate.
Here's what real fitness is, not PE, whatever they call it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always so rough for me, because, like, all the moms in the school were like, well, you go to the school and talk to the coach. And I was like, all right, I don't know how that's not going to do any good, but I will. And so I go, and it took me a solid 5 minutes to 100% decide that this guy is never going to teach my kids how to work out. So it's, a lot of this stuff, and it's not necessarily their fault. They were all taught wrong. So what happened was that everybody all of a sudden wanted to get strong. And they're like, well, who's strong? The Olympic lifters. Well, let's make everybody lift like Olympic lifters, because that's what we want. And the problem is that is not what your sport needs. It's not what you need for a daily basis.
Yeah.
No one who's not an Olympic lifter should be using a bar. You're going to destroy your shoulders. You're going to destroy your spine. Like, you're going to hide weaknesses in your hips and knees. So, like, whenever we train people, we get rid of all the bars. I'm like, nope, no bars. You have to do everything single leg and everything single arm.
Nice.
And it's amazing how much dexterity you can build into somebody, even a pro athlete who's never done single leg work.
Wow. I like this because I don't use bars either. I'm looking at you, dude, and you're freaking jacked. I'm loving it. That's another thing too. I mean, because there's some chiropractors that I've seen that kind of will be nice and say, let themselves go. And I've seen this. It's like, but then that's the only thing. It's like they have fun, they manipulate joints and everything, but they don't get into, like, really the things that help you live life.
Well, and for me, because I speak about health, I talk about how the body works and things like that. And I've always been like, of the mind, one of the reasons I chose to look like this is because if you're going to tell people that you understand how the body really works, that means that you would get to choose how you look. And so I wanted to choose something like, you can tell I chose this. Like, that didn't wake up this morning and go, oh, this is weird. So, like, it's one of those things that if I know how the body works, I can make my body any way I want. And so that's what you show. So if you're a doctor and you're unhealthy, I don't trust you that you know what you're doing. Because why would you choose to be unhealthy?
Yep.
Unless you don't know what you're doing. So
I need like an amen button, dude, for real. Because that's like the whole point, and as I was listening to you, I'm like, you are so, like, polished, which is awesome. I can tell that you speak a lot. Clearly you are a speaker, it's because you're not tearing down other chiropractors, which is awesome. And that's it. So I'm thinking in my head, it's like, no problem. I'll do that for you. Because I've said, like, you be the nice guy today, but then you went to, we're talking doctors, but that's the thing. It's like, I can see that across the board and observationally, with just empirical evidence, I'm seeing it's like, why is one doctor this way and the other is this way? Why is there an MD? Because I think back to days when I was overweight. Why is there an MD that's telling me that I need to drop 40 pounds when he's sitting here with a pot belly? And he's saying it's like, we can do it the natural way or the pharmaceutical way. I remember this conversation with my MD, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, well, you might know and have the knowledge of the pharmaceutical way. That's cool. But do you even know what the natural way is? Because I'm not seeing it. It was this thing, and I was unhealthy at the time, dude. I was unhealthy, and here's somebody telling me that is also unhealthy. Bro, you're unhealthy. Like, here, we can do a pill of the natural. I'm like, what's the natural? He's like, well, I think figure it out. He's like, eat less, exercise. I'm like, thanks, that helps.
Well, it's funny because we talk about this type of stuff all the time. It's a lot of the medical guys were taught a very specific way, and the problem is what they were taught was wrong. And that's just, I don't know how else to say it. I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but it's just a lot of things they were taught were wrong. Now, I will tell you that the last person you want to see if you're bleeding is me. If you've had an accident, you're bleeding. Dude, I'll call 911 for you.
Someone told me that the only two things you really need in life are a good chiropractor and a good surgeon. For real.
I will tell you, knowing a lot of surgeons, my son broke his arm, and I was like, okay, I know the best pediatric orthopedic surgeon in Texas, and so I got him all set up and get it all. And that it is very, very comforting knowing that I have all of the surgeons that we need. But it's just getting the information in is super important, but being able to translate it out in a function where you can actually help people is a little bit different. So when we take a medication, it's specifically trying to take over the body and force it to do something else.
Yeah.
And so those guys need to know that function. And the problem is that I think we're all kind of getting out of our scope a little bit because like I said, if you're bleeding, please don't call me. Like, that's not my scope. That's not what I do. But once you're done bleeding, you need to go ahead and come over here because I can help you regenerate and repair and heal. Right. Because we're going to do the wellness stuff. So that's kind of where these two things come in. But the other thing is that you have to understand patients have choice. Yeah. Like I said about diabetes, diabetes is really easy to fix, takes a couple of weeks and you're done, but you actually have to put work in. It's more than swallowing a pill. So if you're like, no, thanks, I'll just swallow the pill or I'll do the injection. Cool. That's your decision. Go this route. And so I don't feel like we can sit on this side and be like, we should have the choice of how we treat COVID, or we should have the choice how we treat this if we're not going to let other people make the same choice. Like, I think it's crazy choice. It's not mine to make.
Yeah.
So like that's where a lot of this like animosity between the two groups happens, is because people still have choice.
Yeah, for sure, man. So tell me about your show, Wellness Insights.
Yeah. So I've got a bunch of buddies who are, pro athletes and CEOs and stuff like that. And so we're bringing them on and we're talking to them. One of the things we're kind of it's going to take slightly a detour. So I figured out how to use cannabis in a sublingual form to completely knock out pain. So it's totally dosable. So my 10-year-old, when he broke his arm, he had surgery, plates and everything put in. When he had those taken out, he had a plate and 6 pins removed, 6 screws removed. When he came home, all I did was give him cannabis from these strips. It was enough to block the pain, but we could dose it out so he never got any psychological function, never got hot. A buddy of mine just tore his bicep off. He had that surgically repaired. That's all he's using. So we started kind of figuring out how to knock all these things out with cannabis. And then so I did a TED talk on how to end the opioid epidemic using cannabis. And the only problem was at the time I didn't know how to fix addiction. So we started working on it, and you can fix addiction with ketamine and with psilocybin, according to the research we have, 85% of the time. And it's not both. So you can use ketamine and 85% of the time it'll work. And the people who fail that, we can move into psilocybin, and then we can knock it out probably another 20% of the time there. So we're getting a tremendous amount of benefit from these type of things. Now we can put the ketamine on the same sublingual strips. We cannot do psilocybin in Texas, so we're going to have to fly people to Colorado. But So what we're going to start doing is I'm going to start, the charity I have is going to start paying for veterans who have PTSD to go through the one week process and knock out their PTSD. And it's a week. It's like 5 days, come in, we'll knock it out, and then we'll monitor you as you go through. But what I've been told by some of these guys is just unbelievable stuff. Like one of the guys, I was talking to him and I was like, well, how bad was your PTSD? And he goes, I know what all of my guns taste like because they've all been in my mouth.
Oh God.
And I was like, that's okay. And he was like, I had to wake up every single day and try to figure out a reason not to kill myself. And I was like, okay. And I was like, what was it like when you got done? He was like, someone flipped a switch. It was gone. And I was like, it wasn't better. He was like, it was gone. And I talked to 4 or 5 different veterans who told me the exact same thing. And so I was like, well, all right, well, that's what we're going to do. And so we're going to start bringing them in and doing ketamine therapy with them to break out the PTSD, but you can also use it for addiction. One of the guys I was talking to who had a massive cocaine addiction, he told me that he said he was so addicted to cocaine that he was crying about his cocaine addiction while doing cocaine.
Wow.
And he goes, that was a year ago. He was like, after my ketamine treatment. 1 year, he goes, I haven't even wanted to. It's not I have more willpower. He goes, I just have zero desire to touch it.
It's a complete rewiring.
It's complete rewiring.
Yeah.
The neuro on this is super cool, but it just flips the switch. And so for a lot of people, not for everybody, but for a lot of people, it's what the research is showing. And so I was like, why are we not doing this? We all bitch about mental health. Yeah. Let's just go fix it. And so that's what we decided to do. We're going to start going out, and that's going to be, probably in a month or two. And so we're going to start putting all those videos, on the podcast and, out that way. And so we're going to try to, the problem is that, when I put my treatment for COVID out, I fried all my social media. So I'm still locked on Twitter.
I can relate, man. I filmed a movie a few years ago about government overreach. It got the attention of the Trump family and got invited on Laura Trump's show. But dude, I was shadow banned for a good 8 months or so because of that.
Oh, I'm still like, when I talk on Twitter, like nobody sees, like, I don't think anybody sees it. And like, I'll reply to people's stuff and like, someone will ask a question. I'll throw research, like, here's the research you wanted. And no one says anything. And like 12 comments, I'm like, I'm obviously bad.
Have you ever tagged Elon? Maybe he can help.
If I find somebody who knows him, I'll talk to him. If I talk to Rogan, I'll be like, I need one favor.
Yeah, no kidding.
But, that was fun because like we were pulling people out of hospitals to save them. COVID, everything once you figure out how to do it, it's not that hard. But yeah. So COVID's actually, are we past this? Can I actually talk about this?
Oh yeah, please do.
Cool with that?
Yep.
Okay. So COVID is not a respiratory issue; it's vascular. So what happens is that the spike proteins activate the ACE2 receptor sites, which is your entire RAS system. So that's renin, angiotensin, aldosterone. Yep. And so that's kidneys, heart, lung, and brain. Makes the blood vessels squeeze down. When they squeeze down, decreases oxygen to the whole body. So what ends up happening is that you can breathe just fine. Your fuel tank is full of gas, but it doesn't make it to the engine. And so when I started seeing this, and luckily I had it so I could feel it, I was like, well, if I got gas in the tank, but none in the engine, the fuel line's where I got to look. So we started looking at the blood vessels. We started using quinine, not hydroxychloroquine, straight quinine, because its issue was hypovolemia. And it's been used to treat vascular muscle spasms for a long time. Wow. So I was giving everybody quinine, and then I was putting them in a hyperbaric chamber because hyperbaric chambers, just simple Boyle's law of physics, increases oxygenation of the tissue by 1,000%. And so I get guys and I would carry people in who were like pulse oxygen in the high 70s.
Bypassing the fuel line with that.
Yeah. And so we put oxygen on, we give them a shot of quinine. They get down to oxygen. 10 minutes later, pulse oxygen would go from the high 70s to the low 90s.
Wow.
And like people would just start kind of waking up, and it was crazy. So it was never you use a vent to fill the lungs when they can't breathe on their own, but that wasn't the issue with COVID. Now, some of these guys had actual pneumonia as well, but that's not the issue with COVID. It's a blood vessel thing. So if you put them in a hyperbaric chamber, you would have basically saved them all.
That's incredible. Wow. Well, you got my attention for sure. All right. I'm going to do some rapid fire with you. That's cool.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
You're outside of D3 because I'm a full believer in D3 as well. I mean, changed my life when I started. I do 10,000 IUs a day. I should probably do 20, but my levels hover around 70. So outside of D3.
So you want those between 80 and 120.
So I should probably take like 20,000 a day, shouldn't I?
I would take 5,000 to 7,000 in the morning and 5,000 to 7,000 at night.
Okay. So somewhere between 10 and 15 a day is what you're saying. And just keep it monitored.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah.
I dig that. But outside of D3, your top 3 supplements that everybody should take.
Okay, so I consider, let me break this real quick. So I break things down into receptor site function. So you have natural, which is I squeeze the plant, got the oil, or I dried it and put it in the capsule. That's natural. Everything else is pharmaceutical natural. So the methylated B vitamins, I talk about the chewable vitamin C, testosterone, those are all natural, synthetic natural. Pharmaceutical natural. The reason I consider testosterone in here is because it's a naturally produced hormone, just like D3 is, that is required for natural functional growth. And so it needs to be in this side. Now, the difference is that you inject it, not swallow it, because steroids do terrible things to the liver as they go through. It's a safer method to inject it than it is to take it any other way. So that's in there. So testosterone is going to be my number 1. A full spectrum methylated B vitamin is going to be number 2. And then depending on the person, it's either going to be a digestive enzyme that's a probiotic base or it's going to be hydrochloric acid.
Hydrochloric, really? Just to increase the amount of acid in your stomach?
To change it and replace it. So what happens, neurologically, you have 2 systems, right? You have parasympathetic, which is resting, digesting, and you have fight, flight, freeze, which is sympathetic. When about 95% of us live in sympathetic, we should be living in parasympathetic. What happens is that when you change neurologically, everything shuts off. And so you quit producing hydrochloric acid. The hydrochloric acid is not there to clean. It's not there to digest your food. It's there to clean it, kill the parasites, kill the yeast, kill the bacteria, kill everything on it so that it doesn't infect you. Well, the problem is that when you're in a sympathetic state, you quit producing that and you start producing lactic acid. So that GERD, that heartburn, is not because you have too much acid, it's because you have the wrong kind of acid. So if you'll start taking hydrochloric acid, the GERD will go away. But H. pylori can live in a lactic acid state. They cannot live in a pH of 2, which is hydrochloric acid. So if you do have any ulcers, it's going to burn. Now, you have 2 choices. You can either let it burn and kill the H. pylori and your stomach will heal itself, or you can go back through things like bear garlic and things like that, kill the H. pylori, let the stomach heal, then start adding the HCl back in. But the HCl will kill all sorts of parasites. It breaks up biofilms. It does great things for the sinuses. It's a really, really, really important tool.
That's amazing. Dude, you've blown my mind today. I want to come down and take you to dinner. Is that cool?
Anytime, man.
Sweet. I appreciate you, Matt, for coming on. Your book is author of Pillars of Wellness. Pillars of Wellness is your book, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And your show is Wellness Insights. You said that show's shifting. It's still publishing though, right? Because I want to send people that listen.
We're still obviously publishing stuff. So I'll have guys come in. Like I had Kukla come in, one of the bodybuilding buddies not too long ago. And so we're still publishing it. We're still going out. And then I'll do, like, people will send me questions. And if they're good questions, I'll make a video about it and I'll go through it. Like the erythritol one I did, because people are all scared about erythritol, which is one of the best things you can put in your body. And yes, it is 100% natural, because the food day came out and just excoriated it. And that's basically because your parent, I don't know, I'm trying not to be mean, but if you read the article she linked to, it tells you it's phenomenal for blood vessels. Like, I use it for Raynaud's. Like, it dilates small blood vessels in the hands. So people who have really cold, hard hands like Raynaud's, it helps that up quite a bit. So yeah. But yeah, so I'm still answering questions and stuff like that on the podcast. So if you guys have questions, send them to questions@chalmerswellness.com and I'll probably make a video of them.
That's sweet. Awesome. And everybody can find you at Dr. Chalmers 1 on all platforms.
Yes.
That's sweet, man. Very cool.
Yeah.
Dude, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, man.
Dude, this was a blast. Thanks.
Absolutely, yeah. Anytime.